Hello and welcome to this edition of the Halcyon Show. My name is Lorne Risley and I'm going to be your host for this episode. And for those of you who didn't see my previous review, I am now a legitimate actual game reviewer, it seems. I got a code and I reviewed it. It was a really good game. As a result, though, it has had the detrimental effect of enforcing my ego to preposterous proportions, so I'm kind of a big deal now. In fact, I'd go so far as to say I am the single greatest reviewer in the history of YouTube. But anyway, let's not get too carried away for Kev. Let's just wind it back a little bit and talk about a game that has brought me thudding back to earth with an almighty clap to the face. Putin Run Out. What can I say about this game to kind of describe it to you in one sentence?
Oh, this is awkward. I'm gonna walk this situation off, and I will see you later.
It's a game that should be offensive, but really isn't. And it's a game that on the fun of it could have been somewhat of a giggle, or at least something in terms of food for thought, and isn't. And it could have been, despite its relatively rudimental design, somewhat fun, and isn't. Putin Run Out is a satirical runner game with, and I'm quoting here, some strip elements. Developed by Tero Lunkka, or at least published by Tero Lunkka, and developed by Ruskija Game Experience, hailing from Finland. They've also developed other titles such as Elon Musk, The Road to Respect, Gangster Sniper, which based on rudimentary research appears to at least have somewhat better gameplay than this, and Gravity Light, which unfortunately I didn't manage to get any game time on or research because I couldn't find any footage with regards to it. The game itself, Putin Run Out, has been released on the 11th of June 2019, is currently priced at 40% off, priced between 47 pence or 60 cents, depending on which you buy in America or the UK, and is available as part of a wider bundle for around $3.50.
Well, we're waiting.
Let's just give you the synopsis of the game, then hopefully you'll get an idea of what this game set out to achieve from the get-go, and hopefully why I'll be able to explain why this game confuses me so much. So, as a true patriot, your mission is to win in a difficult fight against the main opponent of modern Russia, Russophobic, if that's even a word, Zoomers. These wealthy, immature citizens are subject to the negative influence of the West, and our dear Tsar Vladimir adores morning runs. One day, having started his regular running, he finds himself at the center of Nevin's protest, and I couldn't be asked to research what that was, who is supported by the US State Department. Evil and spoiled Zoomers. Again, what the hell is even a Zoomer? Children of corrupt officials using some sort of stewed fruit. What? Trying to destabilize the situation in our society. The protest is their main weapon. The protest, I suppose, protesting would be the phrase there, but never mind. So let's help our dear Vladimir run his way through 2% of crap that bothers him.
But he didn't say anything!
Yeah, I'm as confused as you. Essentially, the game boils down to this. Vladimir Klitschko is running through a field of protesters, in this case wearing rainbow shirts with 2018 written on them, which again is something we'll touch on again in a few moments, but the fact remains that he's effectively running through a sea of social justice and equal rights protesters for reasons. And that's what the frustrating part of this game. I believe that the game is supposed to be a satirical swipe at Vladimir Putin and the Russian oligarchs and things of that nature. And the idea is that as you progress through each level, using the keypad or the AW buttons to kind of navigate your way through as they come towards you like a maze of social justice, the idea is that you avoid each one, trying to progress and increase your score. The benefit to this, and I use the word benefit incredibly lightly and almost ironically here, is that as you gain points and level up, if that's the word, Putin will remove items of his clothing. Now, it's important to preface at this point of the review that I toyed with the idea of doing that as the review progressed and seeing if anyone noticed me removing my clothes, but then I realized that that would be a stupid idea and that no one would find it even remotely funny.
When you look into it,
I can say the same for this game. It really is one of those games where you get the impression that they set out initially to create something mildly offensive, at least to the same extent that South Park does. Clearly the game is not a propagation or some kind of propaganda or an endorsement of Vladimir Putin. it's taking the more satirical sideswipe of saying, oh look, he's great and blah blah blah, and look at him running through these protesters, isn't that funny? But here's where the game falls down even more so, and we'll get to the gameplay again in a minute, but I feel that this is the most important thing you're going to take away from this game, because like me, you will request this game, buy this game, presumably because you're going to roll your eyes and think, oh god, how bad is this going to be?
That is great.
But it ends up being bland and forgettable and a bit dumb and nonsensical. I mean, just to give you the rest of the synopsis, just to kind of illustrate the big point with this. Running forward, you need to dodge the young morons. Losing his clothes, Tsar Vladimir gains the support of the adult population. Stripping himself, the hero demonstrates that he is the most honest and worthy ruler who has nothing to conceal, having received the support of older generations, parents, grandparents, teachers, and professors who apparently like their political officials stripping down to their bare ass. The Zoomers will lose their strength and Vladimir will gain power. Good luck. As if that's a worthy quest that someone should be aware of at this point. Here's my question. How does any of this matter, and how does any of this get demonstrated in the game in terms of his supposed influence and increase in power? And I get that this is probably maybe a very laxed approach to comedy, considering that it's clear that the developer is not English and that he's translated this and adapted this for a Western audience despite not being Western. But I fail to see the joke here. The joke is not apparent, and it's not clear to see what I'm meant to be finding funny, or even what I'm meant to be finding offensive, down to the fact that I actually came up with a few ideas of my own. For instance, this game effectively has, and this is where we are going to have to get into the gameplay for me to explain my point in a wider context. The game is literally a corridor. You run towards people and they're set up in certain patterns and you have to avoid them. The animations for these characters are actually pretty good, pretty smooth. I didn't encounter many issues in terms of glitches, bugs, and graphical issues, considering that it's a reasonably simple game. You shouldn't really be surprised by that, but still, credit where credit is due. Graphically, it seems pretty sound. However, it's immediately apparent that the joke of this game is going to be smashed into your face because Putin, or rather an avatar of Putin, is running towards you. But there's also a cartoon graphic of Putin that's dressed resplendently in a suit, almost anime style, like in terms of how good shape he's in, considering that he's not in good shape in real life. But anyway, we digress. And again, the graphics change as you progress. There's a little score counter in the bottom left-hand corner, and as you run, the score counter goes up. The more people you go past, and you progressively speed up as you do. The more points you get, the more clothes that Vladimir Putin loses, and that's part of the achievements in Steam, by the way. Two issues with this. Number one, the Putin icon, if you want to call it that, the avatar, takes up way too much space on the screen. It's about a third of the screen is taken up by this non-joke. And secondly, the gameplay is so two-dimensional in the sense that you literally just tap left and right until you die, in effect. You get caught, at which point, by the way, this is the only graphical issue that I could find with the game, or glitch, you bug out like a motherfucker! For some reason, whenever you come into contact with one of these supposed protesters, it sends Putin into an utter frenzy, defying laws of physics, space-time, and reason.
Но хуже уже не будет.
It's impossible for me to really convey how much this game infuriated me from that perspective, because again, coming back to the point I was about to make, if you want to make this game just a big joke, graphically it's not going to blow the world apart. Gameplay wise, it's probably not going to blow the world apart. But let's just make it a joke. Let's make it a dig at something. Here's an idea. Why not make it Trump running? Because then it would kind of make sense in terms of a joke. It's Trump running towards an ever unclothing Vladimir Putin. Like his ideal world situation is a naked Vladimir Putin, and he's just trying his best to run towards that, and the social justice protesters are trying to stop him with, and again, this is where I would add even more in, they're just sort of standing around, just kind of waving and going, boo, we protest, at least I think that's what it is, while Putin runs past saying vaguely Russian things, and then occasionally he'll come out with a song reference. The one that sticks with me is, don't worry, be happy.
Don't worry, be happy.
Which also leads me into the voice acting in this game, which is so bad, but nevertheless, not worth really dwelling on because the main point remains the joke. Why not push the boat out, man? Have the social justice characters be these monstrous ogres. Have them be enemies that actually do things rather than standing around protesting. Have them throwing signs or using signs as kind of a smashing thing or weaponry or something, just to kind of really illustrate the point that to Trump's mind or to Vladimir Putin, if you don't want to go for that idea, Vladimir Putin's mind, these people are the devil. Rather than just what they are, which is just a kind of a minor inconvenient obstacle. It just seems like the overall nature of this game is to be a joke, and it's not a funny joke. So considering it's not a funny joke, let's go by what the developer says that you're getting for this game. Well, according to the developer, the key features are the ability to play as Vladimir Putin, well duh, dynamic gameplay. Dynamic is a strong word, more like formulaic and somewhat repetitive and simplistic. Original sounds. Cool. Authentic phrases. Well, considering that I don't speak Russian, it could be very well the case that they're authentic, but by the same token, they could all be a somewhat thinly veiled attempt to subliminally influence me to go to the nearest Mackie D's, protesting the evils of the West and the capitalist pigs that run it while defecating on the Twin Arches symbol. But I wouldn't know because I don't speak Russian, and it certainly isn't worth pointing out as a plus for the game.
How can you speak 6 languages and sound like a dick in every one of them?
An energetic soundtrack. It's debatable. It does raise the good point that the soundtrack of this game is oddly fitting. You have doom bells and its trance, but I do remember a Vladimir Putin based trance track that was just a little bit better. And finally, Steam achievements, which again, big frickin' whoop. But anyway, right, let's try and crack on. Let's try and find some positivity here. So, does the game feel smooth and responsive? To the game's credit, yeah. Reasonably smooth, reasonably responsive. The entry into the game is easy. You drop straight into the game. The controls don't feel cheap. Actually, in terms of the gameplay mechanics, you have right up until the last moment to be able to avoid enemies. So in terms of the gameplay, what is actually here before you, yes, I would agree that the gameplay is smooth, reasonably easy to traverse, and doesn't necessarily feel broken or overly frustrating. In terms of a learning curve, again, it's 2 buttons left or right. You can't speed up manually, you can't slow down manually. There are no other risks or issues that you need to be confronted with as you traverse the level. I was almost going to say levels, but it's a level. And again, the only thing you need to keep your eyes on is just the ever-enclosing gaps. Again, that's reasonably easy, just because you can see the gaps coming from a mile away, and because the controls are so responsive, you never really feel under any real pressure, because you'll map the route as you go, and it never really feels cheap. It never feels like it's predetermined that you should have gone this way or that way, which means that inevitably you are probably going to get caught, and it's going to take a lucky run for you to be able to get through and not make a mistake. But by the same token, it never feels abundantly cheap. And again, I suppose I should touch on the game's story. There isn't any, there are no characters apart from the pimptastic Putin himself, which again is weird. Why don't you have cameos from other world leaders like Kim Jong-il and Trump and all the other people that you know the West like to lampoon? Just throw in caricatures of those as well, just again, maybe as bonuses or power-ups or people egging him on that just sort of fly up from the side like a Mortal Kombat throwback. And again, the only real objective to this game is just to progress to the point where the Tsar is arse naked, which I'm unhappy to report that I couldn't find it within myself to actually physically do that to myself, because if that's the main objective to the game, I don't want to achieve it. So that kind of renders it really difficult to play towards the middle part when he's already shirtless and he's got that little V thing that girls like. I don't need to see any more than that. So to bring this review to a bit of a close, and unfortunately it's the first negative review I'm going to have to give, and it's my second game in, so not off to the best of starts as a review, but let me try and give a fair shake. I've crapped on this game for about 10 minutes now, maybe a little bit more, so let's try and look at some of the positives. So I do like the design of Putin's avatars. As weird as what I just said compared to what I just said now, They're actually well designed. The way they're drawn, the ratios and stuff like that, the style, eyes, design, I actually kind of like. It looks kind of cool. What I would say again though is that the avatar is far too large. If you wanted to make a sequel to this game, and God help us if you do, I would make that much smaller, or I would put it into its own box so it looks at least like it fits on the screen like it should, rather than the moment where it looks like someone's literally copy and paste it in. I would also add some transitions and, God help me, animations, just to help sell the experience a little bit more rather than just what it does, which is just click and it's gone, to the point where I didn't even notice the strip element at first because it was so subtle. And again, I would change the overall narrative. It would be much funnier if it's Trump running towards an ever more naked Putin. I just feel like that would be funnier, or at least include some kind of parody that makes sense. Or if you want to add a gameplay element in, the protesters should be able to harm Putin. You shouldn't die just on contact. They should be able to hit him or throw things at him. You should have a health bar. You should have some kind of stamina meter, something that means that you can continue to progress through the level and have power-ups and things of that nature to make the gameplay feel more dynamic. And I would also add some verticality. It would be nice to be able to jump. It would be nice to be able to speed up and slow down. It would be nice to be able to have something else to do rather than stare at a very unfunny platform running towards things that again get old after the first 30 seconds. Again, back to some of the positives. I like the animations of some of the protesters. I actually like the backing music, it's oddly fitting. The way the avatar flips out whenever you touch someone is odd, but actually weirdly funny. And the final thing that I would change, and even though this is relatively common amongst Steam games, especially from smaller developers, that initial screen that you use to select things looks bargain basement. Again, I understand that a lot of developers use that, but here's the kicker. You have one option for some of these things, including graphics, and the option is fantastic. That needs changing because that is a gross misrepresentation of what the graphical quality of this game is really about. One final thing as far as the review is concerned, and it's not necessarily towards the game, it's to the publisher and the developer himself. Tero Lunkka, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, has been featured prominently on Jim Sterling's channel. Jim Sterling is a fairly prominent YouTube game reviewer, independent, funded primarily through Patreon. He's taken digs at them. I've also found that they've got some at least tenuous links to Digital Homicide, who again you might have heard of if you're a fan of Jim Sterling's channel, in the sense that they too have known to indulge in practices such as carbon copying games or amending them very slightly, dumping them on Steam, slashing the prices to sell them for a profit. So there's a good chance that this developer has some unscrupulous activities or at least practices. It's just not clear to me exactly what that is, because the publisher, Tero Lunkka, and the developer also have other subsidiaries, and I'm not able to completely verify who developed this game because it's difficult to pinpoint who. Every review I do, I make an attempt to try and contact the developer to ensure that I can ask them some questions and get some feedback on the review prior to it going up. In this case, that simply wasn't possible, and I'm always reticent to purchase something from someone who I don't know. It's one of those just weird things, and I would be reticent if I didn't tell you guys the same thing. But in terms of making a recommendation, I wouldn't recommend this to pretty much anybody, unfortunately. The fact is, to the kind of sick people that might find the kind of jokes that this game sets out to tell funny, wouldn't find this funny in the slightest. People that enjoy good gameplay are going to get bored of its simplistic gameplay incredibly quickly. People that are just looking for a cheap fix, because the game is very, very cheap. It's only 47 pence or 60 cents. It's about the same price as Power Gunner, but Power Gunner offers so much more value, such better gameplay, a much better aesthetic, some semblance of a narrative, which is more than I can say for this game, and that's saying because Power Gunner offers no narrative whatsoever apart from progressing through the levels. And more to the point, it just feels like a more well-crafted experience where this does feel like someone's idea thrown together, and it just doesn't work, unfortunately. And I wish I could be kinder to this game, but given the fact that the developer has a track history of some description, that I don't have the qualifications to report beyond the fact of what I've found, and I'll post the links to the Steam descriptions in the description of this video to make sure that you can have access to the same information. It's just not worth recommending and not worth your time and not worth buying. I would highly recommend a number of other games on Steam, which you'll be seeing on this channel over the coming weeks and months, over this game at the present moment. But, and here's my caveat, and here's my olive branch to this developer. If you decide to make a sequel, Putin running out, Putin rollout, Putin, I don't know, but it's got to have Putin because, haha, Putin, get it? Here's the thing, you need to add more diversity to the gameplay. You can't just have the same crap over and over and over again. You need to add more graphical depth. The same protester every 5 yards is going to get old after a minute. You need to change the graphical layout of the game, and you need to give some meaning to the joke, because otherwise it's just a very unfunny, unpolished and uninspired game that I cannot recommend to people in good conscience. So, there you have it. My first ever negative game review beyond maybe Mass Effect Andromeda, and we all know what a cluster that was. So, what do you think? Have you played Putin Run Out? Leave your comments in the description below. If you haven't seen it, by all means, check out the YouTube content that's on there. There's 2 videos. I know, I checked. Tell me what your thoughts are. Do you find the game funny, witty? Do you enjoy the game? Do you think it was a good experience? Let me know what your thoughts are in the comment section below. In the meantime though, thank you very much for watching this edition of the Halcyon Show. Please like, share and subscribe. Follow me on Twitter at @LorneRisley. Please also check out some of my other videos. I've been producing more content recently on a regular basis, including brand new reviews on brand new games such as this, and you'll be seeing a lot more of this channel going forward. Please also go check me out over at Different Games channel. I've done a few podcasts, and recently we did our first Let's Play video together where he plays a game and I sit in just being funny, so you can tell how bad that video is going to be. Also, if you wouldn't mind, please share this video and please like and subscribe. You have no idea how much it helps me out, especially now that I'm trying to get into being a professional reviewer. If you're watching this video right now and you haven't subscribed for whatever reason, but you've seen a few of my videos in the past, please subscribe. And if you've seen a bunch of my videos and already subscribed, but you've never shared a video of mine, please share it. You have no idea how much it helps me out. In the meantime though, thank you very much once again for watching. Please take care of yourselves. I am the king of YouTube game reviews, Lorne Risley. This has been the Halcyon Show, and I'll see you guys in the next episode.